Hey, I just wanted to give you guys some ideas of when to listen to the Uglies. Uh, you could probably listen to it like as you're getting ready in the morning or just kind of in the background as you're doing some work, whenever you find time. But I do want you guys to listen, just because it's a really good book, and I think that a lot of you will be able to connect with Tally and or Shay as we read it. Anyways, you could just do it, or even like when you're cooking or eating breakfast. Just find some time. I don't think the videos are going to go over 10-15 minutes tops. Those are my thoughts. And here's the next chapter. Hey guys, so as I promised, I was going to read you The Uglies. Um, And just a little recap of what we've read so far. So remember, Tally and Shay decided to go to the Rusty Ruins at night, and Shay wanted to introduce Tally to an old friend named Thomas, but he didn't show up. Um, but Tally thought that, oh no, his name is David, sorry. I don't know where I got Thomas from. But David didn't show up, but when they were riding back, Tally kind of saw like a flicker coming from the Rusty Ruins. Um, but she didn't really think it was anything. Anyways, that is where we left off. They are on their way back. So this is chapter 10, and it is called Flight. Okay. Look at them all, what dorks. Did we ever look like that? Probably, but just because we were dorks doesn't mean they're not. Tally nodded, trying to remember what being 12 was like, what a dorm had looked like on her first day there. She remembered how intimidating the building had seemed, much bigger than Saul and Ellie's house, of course, and bigger than huts that the Little Lees went to in school. One teacher and 10 students to each one. Now, the dorm seemed so small and claustrophobic, painfully childish, with its bright colors and padded stairs, so boring during the day and easy to escape at night. The new Uglies all stuck together in a tight group, afraid to stray too far from their guide. Their ugly little faces peered up at the dorm's 4-story height, their eyes full of wonder and terror. Shay pulled her head back in through the window. This is going to be so fun. It'll be one orientation they won't forget. Summer was over in 2 weeks. The population of Tally's dorm had been steadily dropping for the last year as seniors turned 16. It was almost time for a new batch to take their place. Tally watched the last few Uglies make their way inside, gawky, nervous, unkempt, and uncoordinated. 12 was definitely the turning point, when you changed from a cute little Lee into an oversized, undereducated ugly. I don't think you guys are an undereducated ugly, just so you know. It was a stage of life she was glad to be leaving behind. You sure this thing is going to work? Shay asked. Tally smiled. It wasn't often that Shay was the cautious one. She pointed at the collar of a bungee jacket. You see that little green light? This means it's working. It's for emergencies, so it's always ready to go. Shay's hand slipped under the jacket to pull at her belly sensor, which meant she was nervous. What if it knows there's no real emergency? It's not that smart. You fall, it catches you. No tricks necessary. Shay shrugged and put it on. They borrowed the jacket from the art school, the tallest building in Uglyville. It was a spare from the basement, and they hadn't even had to trick the rack to get it free. Tally definitely didn't want you to get caught messing around with fire alarms, in case the wardens connected her to a certain incident in New Pretty Town back at the beginning of summer. Shay pulled an oversized basketball jersey over the bungee jacket. It was in her dorm's colors, and none of the teachers here knew her face very well. How's that look? Like you've gained weight. It suits you. Shay scowled. She hated being called stick insect or pig eyes or any of the other things Uglies called one another. She sometimes claimed that she didn't care if she got the operation. It was crazy talk, of course. Shay wasn't exactly a freak, but she was hardly a natural-born pretty. There had only been about 10 of those in all the history, after all. Do you want to do the jump? Do you want to do the jump, Squint? I have both been there and done that, Shay, before I even met you, and you're the one who had this brilliant idea. Shay's scowl faded into a smile. It is brilliant, isn't it? They'll never know what hit them. They waited until the new Uglies were in the library, scattered around the work tables to watch some orientation video. Shay and Tally lay on their stomachs on the top floor of the stacks, where the dusty old books were stored. Peering through the guardrails down at the group, they waited for the tour leader to quiet the chattering Uglies. This is almost too easy, Shay said, penciling a pair of fat, black eyebrows over her own. Easy for you. You'll be out the door before anyone knows what happened. I've got to make it all the way down the stairs. So what, Tally? What are they going to do if we get caught? Tally shrugged. True. But she pulled on her mousy brown wig anyways. Over the summer, as the last few seniors turned 16 and pretty, the tricks had grown worse and worse, but nobody ever seemed to get punished. And Tally's promise to Paris seemed ages ago. Once she was pretty, nothing she'd done in the last month would matter. She was anxious to leave it all behind, but not without a big finish. Thinking of Paris, Tally stuck on a big plastic nose. They raided the drama room at Shay's dorm the night before and were loaded with disguises. Ready? She asked. Then she giggled at the nasal twang the fake nose gave her voice. Hang on, Shay grabbed a big fat book from the shelf. Okay, showtime. They stood up. Give me that book, Tally shouted at Shay. It's mine. She heard the Uglies below fall silent and had to resist looking down to see their upturned faces. No way, Pignose. I checked it out first. Are you kidding, Fatty? You can't even read. Oh, yeah? Well, read this. Shay swung the book at Tally, who ducked. She snatched it away and swung back, catching Shay solidly on her upraised forearms. Shay rolled back at the impact, spinning over the railing. Tally leaned forward, watching wide-eyed as Shay tumbled down towards the library's main floor, 3 stories below. The new Uglies screamed in unison, scattering away from the falling body, plummeting towards them. A second later, the bungee jacket activated, and Shay bobbed back up in midair, laughing manically at the top of her lungs. Tally waited another moment, watching the Uglies' horror dissolve into confusion as Shay bounced again and righted herself on the tables and headed for the door. Tally dropped the book and dashed for the stairs, leaping in flight at one time until she reached the back exit of the dorm. Oh, that was perfect. Did you see their faces? Not actually, Shay said. I was kind of busy watching the floor coming at me. Yeah, I remember that from jumping off the roof. It does catch your attention. Speaking of faces, love the nose. Tally giggled, pulling it off. Yeah, no point in being uglier than usual. Shay's face clouded. She wiped off an eyebrow, then looked up sharply. You're not ugly. Oh, come on, Shay. No, I mean it. She reached out and touched Tally's real nose. Your profile is great. Don't be weird, Shay. I'm an ugly, you're an ugly. We'll be for 2 more weeks. It's no big deal or anything, she laughed. You, for example, have one giant eyebrow and one tiny one. Shay looked away, stripping off the rest of her disguise in silence. They were hidden in the changing rooms besides the sandy beach, where they left their interface rings and spare set of clothes. If anyone asked, they'd say that they were swimming the whole time. Swimming was a great trick. It hid your body heat signature, involved changing clothes, and was the perfect excuse for not wearing your interface ring. The river washed away all crimes. A minute later, they splashed out into the water, sinking the disguises. The bungee jacket would go back to the art school basement that night. I'm serious, Tally, Shay said once they were out in the water. Your nose isn't ugly. I like your eyes, too. My eyes? Now you're totally crazy. They're way too close together. Who says? Biology says. Shay splashed a handful of water at her. You don't believe all that crap, do you? That there's only one way to look and everyone's programmed to agree on it? It's not about believing, Shay. You just know it. You've seen pretties. They look, well, wonderful. They all look the same. I used to think that too, but when Paris and I would go into town, we'd see a lot of them and we realized that pretties do look different. They look like themselves. It's just a lot more subtle because they're not all freaks. We're not freaks, Tally. We're normal. We may be gorgeous, but we may not be gorgeous, but at least we're not hyped up Barbie dolls. What kind of dolls? She looked away. Something David told me about. Oh, great. David again. Tally pushed away and floated on her back, looking up at the sky and wishing this conversation would end. They'd been out to the ruins a few times, and Shay always insisted on setting off a sparkler, but David had never showed. The whole thing gave Tally the creeps, waiting around in the dead city for some guy who didn't seem to exist. It was great exploring out there, but Shay's obsession with David had started to sour it for Tally. He's real. I've met him here once. Okay, Shay, David's real, but so is being ugly. You can't change it just by wishing or by telling yourself that you're pretty. That's why they invented the operation. But it's a trick, Tally. You've only seen pretty faces your whole life. Your parents, your teachers, everyone over 16. But you weren't born expecting that kind of beauty in everyone all the time. You're just programmed into thinking anything else is ugly. It's not programming, it's just a natural reaction. And more important than that, it's fair. In the old days, it was all random. Some people kind of pretty, most people ugly all their lives. Now everyone's ugly until they're pretty. No losers. Shay was silent for a while, then said, There are losers, Tally. Tally shivered. Everyone knew about the uglies for life, the few people for whom the operation wouldn't work. You didn't see them around much. They were allowed in public, but most of them preferred to hide. Who wouldn't? Uglies might look goofy, but at least they were young. Old uglies were really unbelievable. Is that it? Are you worried about the operation not working? That's silly, Shay. You're no freak. You're no freak. In 2 weeks, you'll be as pretty as anyone else. I don't want to be pretty. Tally sighed. This again. I'm sick of this city, Shay continued. I'm sick of the rules and boundaries. The last thing I want is to become some empty-headed, new pretty, having one big party all day. Come on, Shay. They do all the same stuff we do. Bungee jump, fly, play with fireworks. Only they don't have to sneak around. They don't have the imagination to sneak around. Look, Skinny, I'm with you, Tally said sharply. Doing tricks is great, okay? Breaking the rules is fun. But eventually you've got to do something besides being a clever little ugly. Like being a vapid, boring pretty? No, like being an adult. Do you ever think that when you're pretty you might not need to play tricks and mess things up? Maybe just being ugly is why uglies always fight and pick on one another, because they aren't happy with who they are. Well, I want to be happy, and looks like a real person is the first step. I'm not afraid of looking the way I do, Tally. Maybe not, but you are afraid of growing up. She didn't say anything. Tally floated in silence, looking up at the sky, barely able to see the clouds through her anger. She wanted to be pretty, wanted to see Paris again. It seemed like forever since she talked to him, or to anyone else except Shay. She was sick of this whole ugly business and just wanted it to end. A minute later, she heard Shay swimming for shore. Okay, that was chapter 10, I think is what I said. The next chapter is called Last Trick, and I'll record another video so I can read that one, okay? So you only have to do like only listen to one chapter at a time.